Yo, what's going on, boys? Welcome back to the stream. Welcome back to our Monday and Tuesday streams, where we stream Monday and Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And of course, Fridays are for our channel members only. So welcome back to the stream, boys. Obviously, yesterday we had a pretty good stream. I appreciate everybody for joining. Before I get into some of your boys' questions, I wanted to quickly touch upon the news. Honestly, not too much, but there has been a couple of things. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So the first bit of news is this: UFC 330 will take place August 15th in Philadelphia. Now, this is obviously a place that haven't went in quite some time, so I'd be interested to see who's actually on this card. There's been some rumors that Paul Felder said if the UFC ever went back to Philadelphia, he would fight one last time on that card, so maybe he'll be on that card. Also, there's been some additional rumors that Islam Makhachev, John Pork, and maybe some other Dagestanis are going to be on that card, so maybe it will be Islam Makhachev versus Michael Morales or Islam Makhachev versus Ian Gary. We're kind of still up in the air about that fight. We're not exactly sure who's going to get that title shot opportunity against Islam, but there's been some rumors that he at least is going to be fighting on this card, so I guess we shall see. Outside of that, we have this fight announced: Christian Rodriguez versus Haider Amil, sorry, at UFC Vegas 119. Kind of a fun fight, I guess. Nothing too significant, but kind of a fun fight. And then this is something we talked about yesterday, but Tom Nolan versus Faraz Ziam is also taking place at UFC Vegas 118. But honestly, outside of that, not really much else. But essentially, the talk of the town has been Yuri Prochazka and whether or not he actually did show mercy to Carlos Ulberg or not. Obviously, as I said in yesterday's live stream, alongside with the stream as soon as the card ended, in my opinion, I don't necessarily think he showed mercy. I think probably more so what it was is he had a lapse in focus in a certain moment. I think there was a certain moment when he realized that Carlos Ulberg tore his ACL in the fight, and he kind of took a step back and kind of just lost focus a little bit. But in terms of the actual finishing sequence, it's not like that's something that doesn't normally happen to Yuri Prochazka. It essentially always does in every single fight. It's just a difference between the Ulberg fight and maybe the Khalil Roundtree fight or other performances is usually when those guys land their best shots, Yuri is able to take it. But unfortunately for him in this fight, when Carlos Ulberg was able to land his best shot, Yuri was not able to eat it. I think it's as simple as that. Now, also, this has been something that I've been talking about a little bit. Also, I'm going to be putting out a full in-depth breakdown about exactly what I'm talking about tomorrow. But I heard some people talking about this, and honestly, I kind of agree to an extent. There's a very real possibility that Yuri Prochazka may never be the same whenever he does return next. Now, I would like to see him, stay out for quite a while, at least a year, maybe 8 months, something like that. I think that would be a smart thing for him to do. Ever since, whenever you get knocked out cold, especially, you want to give your brain some time to recover. But whenever he does recover, there is a very real possibility that his chin won't be the same. And if Yuri doesn't have an absolute elite chin, it's going to be a real problem for him because he relies on his chin pretty significantly. So I hope it doesn't happen like that. I hope Yuri is going to be fine and, he'll be on top of his game and he'll be a champion once again at some time, one time or the other. But it is at the very least a very real possibility. Yo, what's going on, brother? Welcome to the stream. Chad, what's going on, brother? I started my walk today. Will I reach Philadelphia? Yeah, I mean, it could work out depending on where you are at this point. But yeah, it's cool. I mean, nothing, too crazy, I guess. But it's cool that the UFC is going back to Philly. We'll see who's actually on the card, though. Obviously, that's more interesting than the location of the card itself. When me and my wife mercy. Very nice. Yeah, I don't know, but it is definitely a talk of the town in the MMA world as of late over these last couple days, ever since the card. But in my opinion, I don't think he necessarily showed mercy in the finishing sequence. I don't think he literally said, Ulberg, here's the free victory. I think he just made a mistake in the fight itself, and it's something, unfortunately, that has been very common for Yuri Prochazka. So we'll see how he performs going forward from here. There is a very real possibility that his chin will never be the same anymore. I hope that's not the case. I hope his chin is absolutely fine, but, only time will tell. The only good thing I will say, though, for Yuri Prochazka is the top half of the light heavyweight division is pretty bad. You have Magomed Ankalaev at the very top, who's not a bad fighter, but he is coming off a knockout loss. Then you have Jan Blachowicz, who's getting older. You have Khalil Roundtree, who Yuri Prohaska already knocked out. You have Jamal Hill, who Yuri Prohaska already knocked out. And then you have Paulo Costa, Azamat Murzakanov, who also is coming off a knockout loss. So, I mean, the weight class is definitely not that good. So if there was any time, or if there was ever a weight class for Yuri to have success in, this is probably the best weight class to be at. That haircut on top changes Yuri forever. Yeah, honestly, him losing his antenna is definitely not a good thing for Yuri's career going forward, unfortunately. It looks too normal at this point. Yuri fights crazy, and he has to look crazy, and unfortunately, he doesn't really anymore. So it was a negative for him for sure. Yo, what's going on, brother? Welcome to the stream. Thanks so much for joining the stream. I appreciate it, brother. But also, I did want to give you guys some rankings updates. So obviously, for the light heavyweight division, Carlos Ulberg is the champion. Yuri Prohaska moves down a spot to number 3, as well as Paulo Costa moves into number 7 at the light heavyweight division. We'll see how that actually plays out, because I do think it could be somewhat significant. The fact that Paulo Costa is at number 7 makes it a little bit more tricky to give him a shot at the interim title, which has been something that I've been talking about actually for a little bit. But we'll see. We'll see. That is something to think about, obviously. Outside of that, Josh Hokett is number 5 at heavyweight. Definitely puts him in a good spot. Anyways, we already know his next fight is going to be up against Derek Lewis, but it does put him in a good spot at the weight class. And outside of that, I think that's more or less it. Matush Gamrot moves up to number 7 at lightweight, and I think that's more or less it. Oh, Aaron Pico, number 13 at featherweight. And that is more or less all their rankings updates from UFC 327. Yo, what's going on, brother? Welcome to the stream. Yo, what's going on, bro? Welcome to the stream. How do you think? Very nice. UFC 185, number 1, Juicy Rest Don't Matter. I appreciate that, brother. You are right, though. I definitely am the best at 185. 185? You want to find 185? People forget, man. Mark McGuire. You're right. They do forget. Yo, what's going on, honey? Welcome to the stream. Do you have a favorite fight of all time? Yes, I do. Charles Oliveira versus Justin Gaethje is my favorite fight of all time. It's just going into the fight, everybody thought Charles wasn't as good anymore. He was going to lose the fight. He missed weight. It was kind of a lot of controversy with that anyway, but everything was essentially against Charles Oliveira. And then he goes out there and puts away Justin Gaethje in the first round. Super, super fun fight, especially after getting dropped multiple times in that same round. That's my favorite fight of all time. Also, Glover Teixeira versus Yuri Prohaska is a great fight. One of my favorites of all time as well. There's a lot of really, really fun fights over the years, but I would say that's probably my number 1. If I had to say. What about you, boys? What's your favorite fight of all time? Happy New Year. I appreciate that, brother. Happy New Year to you as well. But yeah, let me do a quick Twitter check to see if I missed anything. As I said, really not much in terms of news. Really, the only big thing is UFC 330 is going to be in Philadelphia, but we don't have a main event or anybody on the card, honestly, for that particular event. Chanko did post himself in Philadelphia, so maybe he's going to be involved on that card. It's possible. I know we've been talking about it a lot on these streams. Where is John Pork? I have no idea. I mean, he fought in the Contender Series a long time ago at this point, and we haven't heard any sort of fight news, and obviously he has not fought ever since the Contender Series fight, where he looked really good in that fight, but maybe we'll be hearing some news relatively soon, and maybe he actually will be involved on that Philadelphia card. Now, who is he going to fight? Honestly, I have no idea. I'm sure they're going to give him an unranked guy. Who that's going to be, I don't know. I guess only time will tell, but I do think they see Chanko as a potential star at the UFC level, a guy who's pretty good at the UFC level, and we'll go forward from there. But I don't know. I'm sure they're going to give him a guy that's not really a great grappler, as you know, although he probably could grapple a little bit. Takedown defense, I'm sure, is decently well training over in Dagestan. At the end of the day, they're going to want to give him a striker so he can showcase his skill set. But we'll see. But yeah, honestly, like the rumors have been all over the place. We haven't really heard anything as of late from Dana White or the UFC, but there's been a lot of random rumors that Islam's going to be fighting Morales and Islam's going to be fighting Ian Gary. So I don't know. Honestly, as I said in multiple live streams, I don't really have an issue with either one of those matchups. If they give it to Ian Gary or Michael Morales, I think both of those guys deserve it. Both of them are coming off really impressive victories. For Ian Gary, he's coming off an impressive victory over Bilal, and Michael Morales is coming off a really impressive victory over Sean Brady. So I don't really have an issue with either one. It just depends what the UFC really wants to do at this point. But outside of all of that, it is fight week for probably the worst card, maybe of all time. UFC Ottawa, Gilbert Burns versus Mike Malott is your main event. I don't really understand why they went with this fight. I mean, I guess I kind of do. Mike Malott is one of those guys that they see as a potential star out of Canada, and they want to build up his stardom or potential stardom. But the only issue is Mike Malott's terrible. That's the only issue with Mike Malott. When you look throughout his fights, he honestly has not had an impressive performance in his UFC career, in my opinion. His most recent fight over Kevin Holland was not amazing, to say the least. Kevin Holland was hobbled throughout the entirety of that fight, more or less, after he got groin shotted multiple times. So I don't really see that fight as that impressive. And even on top of that, Mike Malott didn't put on a great performance. His fight before that against Charles Radke was okay, I guess. Trevin Giles was really, really bad, actually, kind of just a staring contest. The Neil Magny fight was really bad, obviously got finished in the third round. And I think that's kind of what you get with Mike Malott. If he lands a big shot, then okay, he'll find the finish. But outside of that, it turns out to be mostly staring contests. Mike Malott is a very low output sort of fighter, and I think we're going to see that once again against Gilbert Burns. Could he land a shot? Maybe, but if he doesn't, it's going to be a long night for probably the fans, most importantly. Now, as for Gilbert Burns, he is obviously a well-known name, but at the same time, he's pretty washed, in my opinion. I think as of late, over his last couple fights, he has not really looked all that great. So I'm not really that excited about this main event personally, but we'll see how it plays out, obviously. Outside of that, you have Charles Jourdain versus Kyler Phillips. That fight honestly could be relatively fun. I don't have many issues with that. You have Silva versus Jasmine Jasavicius. Jasavicius, honestly, is pretty fun and pretty good out of Canada. So we'll see what happens there. But honestly, outside of those couple fights, there's nothing else on this card that I see as a fun fight or a really good fight or anything like that. It's unfortunate that this is the type of card they have going to Ottawa, but it is what it is. Joshua, what's going on, brother? Welcome to the stream, and thanks so much once again for becoming a channel member. But yeah, that's kind of a common trend for what we're starting to see as of late, as a lot of these cards coming up are just very watered down. Not every single card is going to be bad. I know a lot of people criticize Dana White for literally everything and the UFC for literally everything. I think the UFC is doing things right. There's no question about it. But at the same time, like, these cards are kind of unacceptable, and it feels like we're seeing it more and more frequently. For example, this weekend, obviously, it's not very good. Then the weekend after that, you have Yusuf Zalal versus Aljamain Sterling. Honestly, pretty good main event. But outside of that main event, the rest of the card is not very fun, to say the least, and not very high level. The week after that, you have UFC Perth, JDM versus Carlos Prates. Honestly, really good main events. The co-main event, Sal Killed versus Beneil Dariush, pretty fun. Tim Elliott versus Steve Garcia versus Steve Urseg, also pretty good. But outside of that, it takes a real drop off. And that card is not necessarily the worst, but it's not that good either, I guess. Then the card after that is 328, which is legitimately really good. But I guess my point is we're starting to see more and more of these Mike Malott versus Gilbert Burns type of cards, which is unfortunate for the sport and, most importantly, unfortunate for the fans. But I don't know. Probably as time does progress, as we get into the summer months, as we get into the winter months, things are going to get a lot better. But yeah, boys, outside of that, what's going on in the world? It is the playoffs, I believe, right? The play-in game is going on right now in the NBA for anybody that does watch it. I don't even remember who's playing today. Drinking stuff. Very good. Who is playing today? The Heat and the Hornets are playing right now. All right. So, yeah, but in terms of the MMA world, honestly, not really much. And I was happy that, a few months ago, whenever it was, we did get some additional news from the UFC, and they essentially announced the next 7 cards or whatever it was, 8 cards, which was nice. But at this point, we're kind of waiting for some additional cards to get announced, some additional pay-per-views to get announced. And we're just kind of in that waiting zone. And it seems like that's what we always have. We get a lot of information at one point in time, then it's kind of just a bit of a waiting zone. And that's kind of where we're at this point, unfortunately. But yeah. Thoughts on Topuria versus Gaethje? I don't really think Gaethje has much of a chance at all, if we're being honest. Outside of a fluky sort of head kick, I don't think he wins the fight. I just really don't. I know a lot of times it's very difficult to say this guy literally has no chance ever, because it's a fight. Somebody could land a big shot, they can find a knockout, and that'll be it. But going into this fight specifically between Ilya and Gaethje, I just don't really see much of a chance for Gaethje outside of a head kick, as I mentioned, because even if he is having success utilizing calf kicks, maybe even landing a couple of big shots with his hands, I just don't know if he hits hard enough to actually knock out Ilya Topuria. Ilya has shown a really good chin for one, and for two, most importantly, he has shown really good defense. So I don't really know what the game plan is going to be. The only thing I can think of, obviously, is just calf kicks, utilize footwork, stay at range, eventually fire in a head kick and hope you get lucky. Or outside of that, maybe pressuring and forcing Ilya Topuria alongside the cage, and from there, maybe land a couple of uppercuts, some dirty boxing in close. Maybe that could be a strategy. But even in the clinch, Ilya Topuria is pretty strong and obviously pretty talented. So I don't know. I really don't see it for Gaethje, but crazier things have happened, I guess. Or actually, I don't know if that's true, but crazy things have happened in the past for sure. What are your picks in the NBA Finals? Think your Knicks can get there? I have not been nearly as confident in the Knicks this year as compared to last year, for example. But we'll see. Obviously, I do think the Knicks should win in their first round matchup against the Hawks. Then I'm sure they'll play the Celtics in the second round. I think the Knicks could beat the Celtics once again, so maybe the Knicks can get back there. I think the real difficult matchup for the Knicks would probably be the Detroit Pistons, which obviously they have not done well against them during the regular season. But I would either say Knicks or Pistons would be the favorites out of the East, in my opinion. Obviously, I'm biased, but I would say that. And then out of the West, I would probably say the Thunder. I mean, they're just incredibly good every single year, it feels, and they're only getting better each and every year as they have a million draft picks. I mean, the Spurs are really good as well, but I would probably say the Thunder would be my picks out of the West. So we'll see how everything plays out. Definitely excited for the playoffs. It's a really fun time of year, but I don't know. The Knicks are looking pretty good, though, as of late. And I know during the regular season, they didn't perform really all that well against the higher level teams, but same thing happened last year, and they were able to beat the Celtics in the playoffs. So it doesn't really matter that much. That's something that we've learned over the past few years. The regular season, honestly, doesn't really matter much. You use it to get to the playoffs. Hopefully you can gain some momentum from it, but it's a completely different game in the playoffs. What else we got, boys? Thoughts on Islam Makhachev's next fight? I don't know. We don't have any official announcement for Islam. I think there's been a lot of rumors that he's going to fight at UFC 330, which, as I touched upon before, he's going to be in Philadelphia, and maybe we'll finally see John Pork on that card, maybe Umar Nurmagomedov, maybe some of those other Dagestanis, but no official announcement as of yet. But if he does fight on that card, I'm sure he's going to be going up against either Ian Gary or Micah Morales, but only time will tell what does end up happening for Islam next. I think the Spurs can beat OKC. They beat them every time this year, I believe. That's true. I mean, yes, listen, styles make fights in MMA as well as in the NBA. So stylistically, maybe it's a pretty tough matchup for the Thunder. So who knows? We'll see how it plays out. But I'm definitely very excited for it for sure. Who are the Spurs playing in the first round? I don't even know. What seed are they? Second seed, I think. Let's see NBA standings. West Thunder are this, or Spurs are the second seed. All right. But all right. We'll see. I guess we don't know who they're playing yet. We'll see tonight, or tonight I think. Costa versus Ankalaev. I don't really know if I agree Costa versus Ankalaev for the interim belt. I personally would prefer it to be Khamzat versus Paulo Costa. I think that fight honestly makes a lot more sense. I know people will say Paulo Costa definitely does not deserve the interim shot. He only has one win at the division, which to that I traditionally would agree. But based upon the circumstances of the weight class and Magomed Ankalaev, Yuri Prohaska, Khalil Roundtree, as well as Mirzakhanov and Jamal Hill, honestly, are all coming off knockout losses. I think it kind of opens the door a bit to Paulo Costa, who's coming off the best win of his career. And also a fight between Paulo Costa and Khamzat Chimaev is a huge fight in general. So assuming Khamzat does beat Sean Strickland, which is not a guarantee, but I think it will happen, I personally would put that fight together. It's a huge fight at the division, and honestly, a division that hasn't had too many huge fights in quite some time. I know when Alex Pereira was fighting at the division and knocking everybody out, there definitely were a lot of fun fights at the weight class, and Alex Pereira definitely is a star, no question about that. But in terms of a fight that has felt like legitimately huge, we haven't had one at the light heavyweight division for quite some time. Maybe you could say Yuri versus Alex, but I do think Paulo Costa versus Khamzat will feel huge and probably feel like one of, if not the biggest fights at the light heavyweight division for some time, honestly. But we shall see. Definitely interested to see what happens as Carlos Holberg, I'm sure, tore his ACL. Technically, at this point, we don't officially know, but I think everybody kind of knows already that he tore his ACL. We'll wait for the official word from Carlos Holberg or from his team. But if it is a torn ACL, he's probably going to be out for at least 8 months, maybe a year. And he also is 35, so you never know with those sort of injuries how they're going to return. Carlos also honestly does rely a lot on his physicality. Well, yes, but what I meant to say is he relies a lot on his athleticism. And after being 35 and tearing your ACL, there's no guarantee that he's going to come back the same. So there's no guarantees for him. There's no guarantees for Yuri Prochazka either. So there's a lot of question marks, I would say, for the light heavyweight division. But probably the biggest winner of UFC 327 has to be Paulo Costa. Paulo Costa was able to win in decisive fashion, and also everybody else the weight class ahead of him essentially got knocked out in their last fight. So he's the big winner for sure. But yeah, we shall see. Thoughts on Alexander Volkanovski's next fight? I think it's probably going to be Evloev. As I said in previous live streams, I always thought that was a number one contender fight, Evloev versus Lerone Murphy. Listen, I think the UFC would love to put a fight together between Volkanovski and Jean Silva. I'm also a Jean Silva fan. I think Jean honestly could beat Volk. But with that being said, I just don't think it makes any sense at all to put that fight together. So I'm assuming the number one contender who's been deserving of a title shot forever, honestly, will get it. And I'm sure it's going to be Volk versus Movsar Evloev. Or I don't know if I'm sure about it, but that's what should happen next at the very least. But I don't know. You never know with the UFC. They kind of just put together the matchups they want the most. And it's unfortunate, I guess. Miami Dolphins. Am I right, Miami? Yeah, Josh Hokit actually probably is the biggest winner of UFC 327. Maybe Paulo Costa is number 2. But he really proved that he's legit. I'm very high on him, actually. And listen, when you watch his performance, I know it was a bit of a brawling sort of performance. I posted a video about this actually twice in my past couple of uploads, and a lot of people in the comment section was saying, yeah, it was a really fun fight, but he more or less was just brawling. He's not actually that good. In my opinion, yeah, I do actually agree with that to an extent. He definitely was brawling. But with that being said, he has a lot of attributes that could lead him to be very successful at the weight class, even up against the top level guys. And we also have to understand that Josh Hokit is only 28 years old. He's really young in general, but especially for the heavyweight division. So this guy's probably going to be around for some time. And there's a very real possibility that he's around after Alex Pereira, Tom Aspinall, as well as Cyril Gane are at the division, or at the very least at the top of their game. And if he's still there and he's still in his prime, and let's say 3 or 4 years from now, I'm sure he's going to touch gold at one point or the other. And obviously, on top of that, he's really young. He can make improvements. I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever. So we'll see. I'm personally pretty high on him. Is there definitely some things that he needs to adjust and get better on? Yeah, for sure. He definitely is a bit brawly, I guess, as we've seen multiple times. He does take a little bit, too much punishment for my liking, especially at heavyweight. You never know when you can go out, especially considering also he's smaller than everybody else. But I think he looked really good overall based upon, his fight. Johnny, what's going on, brother? Welcome to the stream. Do you think Josh can beat the top 5? Yeah, I do think so. Currently, right now, yes. And in the future in general, definitely yes. But at this point, do I think he could beat Waldo? Yeah, I do. Do I think he could beat Sergey Pavlovich? Honestly, yes, I do. I think he can look to wrestle a little bit in that fight and also just land first on the feet. In certain occasions, he does need to be a little bit cautious with both Waldo as well as Sergey Pavlovich. But I think the speed factor is going to be such a significant advantage for him in either one of those fights that I think he could beat either one of those guys. In terms of Volkov, also, I definitely do think he'll beat him. The issue with Volkov over the years has been athletic guys that are very fast, and Hokit is exactly that. Volkov is really good. Actually, I think he's one of the more underrated guys at the heavyweight division for some time. But with that being said, if he can't keep you at range and you're just a little bit too fast and too athletic for him, that's where he runs into issues. And I think a guy like Josh Hokit can pressure effectively, shoot in for takedowns effectively, take down Volkov pretty easily, and from there, find a finish on the ground. So I do think that he'll be able to beat him as well. In terms of Cyril Gane, Now, all of a sudden, I think you get into a bit of a trickier fight for Hokit. Maybe he can look to wrestle. Obviously, Gon has not done great with wrestlers in the past, but this is definitely a bit of a trickier matchup. And Tom Aspinall, I think the same could be said. But in terms of Volkov, Sergey, and Waldo, honestly, I think Hokit could beat all those guys right now. What else we got, boys? Also, if you guys are enjoying the live stream, be sure to hit that like button down below. Essentially, it tells YouTube you're enjoying it, brings more people to the live stream. So I'd appreciate that if you boys can do that. Josh better win now. Gable is coming. We'll see how good Gable Stevenson actually is. I mean, based upon everything that we've seen so far, he does look pretty good, I would say. There definitely are a couple of things that I would like to see him touch up on, especially, how hittable he is in certain moments. But in general, like, I would agree he looks pretty good. His wrestling, obviously, is pretty good, to say the least. He's coming from a very high-level wrestling background. And there's definitely a lot of excitement. He's athletic. He moves well, and honestly, that's enough for the majority of the weight class. But I would like to see him fight in the UFC before I make my judgment on him, saying if he's really good or whatnot. But we shall see. Definitely will be interesting. Where are we at here? I'm getting food. We'll be back, chat. Very good. Let's go, brother. I'll be waiting. Rip Josh Hoy. Dude, I don't know why I kept fucking that up, but I got a lot of shit about that in live streams as well as in the comment sections of some of my videos. It's kind of hilarious. I don't know why I thought it was Hoykit, but for a while I thought it was Josh Hoykit, and I kept saying that. But yes, it is Josh Hokit. I apologize for fucking that up for so long. But Josh Hokit is legit. He's really fun inside the octagon and outside of the octagon. I know he's a bit cringy for sure, but he makes it work. And obviously, I kind of find it interesting when people don't understand what he's doing out there. I mean, I think we've seen it enough times where certain guys are trying to put on the act of trying to be cringy just to garner attention. Obviously, Hokit or Hoykit is trying to do that successfully, actually, in this case, because he turns out to be a really good fighter and a fun fighter. But I just never understood when people just don't understand that. We've seen it so many times in the UFC and even outside of the UFC and combat sports in general. But I don't know. Doesn't make sense to me. But Hokit is really good for the weight class in general. Outside of being a fun fighter, he also just brings a lot of attention to the heavyweight division. A heavyweight division, honestly, that has been so bad and so boring for I don't know how long. I just thought it was a New York thing or something, so I tried correcting you. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why I thought it was Hoykit. But I don't remember who told me about it first that I was fucking it up. Maybe it was one of my boys. Maybe it was someone in the comments of one of my videos. But eventually someone told me, and then yeah, that was kind of hilarious that I kept saying that. But yeah, I don't know. I fucked it up pretty bad. But nonetheless, he's good. He's fun. So whatever. Josh Hoykit. Yeah, let me take a look quickly to see if I'm missing anything. Yes, sir. UFC 330 is going to be in Philadelphia. First time they're going there in a while, 7 years. So it's been a little bit. But we shall see. Any updates on Merab versus Jan? Not sure. There's no updates at this point about Merab and Jan. I'm assuming that is going to be the next fight for the title at bantamweight, but I don't exactly know when it's going to be. I'm sure it's going to be sooner rather than later. Maybe it could be, honestly, on that UFC 330 card in Philadelphia, maybe as a co-main event to Islam Makhachev versus Michael Morales main event, or Islam Makhachev versus Ian Gary main event. We'll see what it is. Could possibly be for that card. Maybe it'll be a little bit later. Maybe it'll be for International Fight Week, the co-main event for that card. Honestly, I have no idea, but I do think that is going to be the fight. I know some people were pointing to the fact that if Sean O'Malley is able to win at the White House card, he'll get the next shot against Jan, which I'm sure the UFC is dying to put that fight together. But at the end of the day, I don't know why, but I just have a feeling that they're going to make things right and they're going to give Merab Dvalishvili the next title shot. I mean, he clearly deserves it. He was the champion for quite a while. He defended the belt a lot. He was fighting incredibly frequently. He definitely does deserve it. If any champion deserves to get an immediate rematch, it probably is Merab Dvalishvili. So hopefully he gets his title shot. But I know the UFC has been dreaming about a rematch between Sean O'Malley as well as Petr Yan for forever. And honestly, like, that fight is really fun. As many times as you put that together, the first fight was really fun. I'm sure it'll be really fun as well the second time around. And also on top of that, I know a lot of people thought that that Petr Yan got robbed, that he should have won that fight. I tend to agree. I thought Yan should have won that fight, but it was super close. And they scored it for Sean. I guess it is what it is. But Jan's a champion now, and if Sean wants that belt back, he's gonna have to beat Jan. Thoughts on Paulo Costa's ranking? I think it's fine. Murzakanov was number 6, I believe, when he fought up against Paulo Costa. Paulo is number 7 in the rankings. I think it's fine. I do think it makes it a little bit more tricky to actually put together that interim title fight against Hamza Chimaev. Having the number 7 ranked guy going up against a guy from another weight class is definitely a bit of a harder sell, but I still think the UFC could do it, or maybe they're just going to force Paulo Costa to fight one more time before he gets that shot at the interim belt, maybe up against a top 5 opponent next. We'll see how he performs, but maybe they give him Yuri Prochazka or Magomed Ankalaev, or maybe even a Khalil Roundtree, possibly, or maybe even a Jamal Hill, possibly. Maybe they'll do something like that. If they really want Paulo Costa to win, maybe they'll give him Jamal Hill. I do think Paulo Costa should be okay in that matchup, but Jamal Hill just can't move, honestly. His footwork's incredibly bad. Paulo Costa has been looking really good. His footwork's really good. His body kicks are good. And most importantly, he honestly performs really well against southpaws. It's kind of funny to see how frequently that Paulo Costa goes up against southpaws in his UFC career. Yoel Romero and also his most recent 2 performances. So he has a lot of experience against southpaws, and both Khalil Roundtree as well as Jamal Hill are southpaws. So I think Paulo Costa would be fine in those matchups. A matchup between Magomed Ankalaev and Paulo is way more difficult, obviously. Probably would favor Unk. And Yuri Prochazka versus Paulo Costa is never a matchup I ever thought I would possibly say. But even then, I think I would probably have to favor Yuri in that matchup. So it depends. Yuri should fight Azamat. Honestly, I don't hate that, Johnny. I don't hate that matchmaking. I do think Yuri's going to need to get at least one more win. Honestly, preferably 2 more wins before he gets that title shot. Or if he ever gets that title shot ever again. But I don't mind a fight between those 2 guys. They're both coming off knockout losses on the same card. Why not? He essentially already fought everybody else. Could he fight Ankalaev? I guess, but I just don't think he'll deserve that opportunity to fight up against the number 1 contender after getting knocked out as badly as that was. So I don't mind it. PB, what's going on, brother? Welcome to stream. John Pork missing? Nah, not actually, but he hasn't fought in forever, and we haven't heard any fight news from him. So I don't know exactly what's going on. But hopefully he fights sooner rather than later. I know he posted something about him being in Philadelphia, and a lot of fans are, wondering, is he going to be on that Philadelphia card for UFC 330? Maybe, but we're just waiting for so long, and there's just no announcements at all on John Pork. It was just very weird to see. So I don't know. We'll see, I guess, whenever he does decide to show up. Conor McGregor said he's coming back. Yeah, I think he's probably going to fight on International Fight Week for that card, I guess. But I don't know. You never know with Conor McGregor. He says he's coming back, and then the UFC and him just can't come to terms for whatever reason, and the fight doesn't get made. So I don't know exactly when he's going to return, but hopefully he does, I guess. I don't know. It doesn't really change much for the sport. I just think it's good in terms of, for the UFC, I guess, to make money. But in terms of forwarding the sport, I don't know if it really matters that much anymore, unfortunately. Favorite food combo, burger with fries or pizza with ranch? A pizza with ranch dip? What? I know people do that, but come on, brother. I would say out of those 2 options, I definitely would say burger with fries. Listen, I see a pizza like a good steak. If you have a really good pizza, you don't need to dip it in anything. You just eat the pizza. It's the same thing with the steak. If you have a really good steak, you don't put A1 sauce in it like an idiot. You just eat the steak. So that's kind of the situation, in my opinion. But I'm from New York, so maybe that's why I feel that way. Costa might walk down, Unk down like Alex. Maybe. I mean, the thing is about Costa is, as of late, he kind of fights off the back foot. He does so very effectively, but he fights off the back foot quite a bit. Can he fight going forward? Sure he can. He's done it a lot in the past. And maybe he could against Ankalaev. Also, once again, a southpaw. So that body kick is going to be open for Paulo Costa. Those head kicks are going to be open for Paulo Costa. But I don't know. It's definitely a more difficult matchup, I would say. But we'll see. We'll see if he ever gets that matchup. Olberg versus Bo, personality tier. I definitely will say Olberg is better than Bo. Bo Nickel is one of the worst personalities in the UFC, in my opinion. Olberg doesn't really have a personality. I know he's kind of trash talking Yuri Prohaska during his Ariel Helwani interview, and a lot of people are a bit upset about that. But it's kind of whatever. He's fine. He's just not much of a personality, in my opinion. People don't really care about him. Unfortunately, he is the champion, so I guess good for him. But definitely Bo Nickel is lower on the tier list. Fucking hell, man. I don't know what's going on here. A bunch of flies and whatnot. I want Connor in the commentator box. Yeah, that'd be hilarious. Every time he does some sort of a promotional thing for BKFC or whatever, it's always really funny. So I wouldn't mind it being in the commentating box. That'd be hilarious. I just don't think the UFC would actually do it. Chicago pizza or New York pizza? Obviously New York pizza, in my opinion, but I'm from New York. But in general, I prefer like a thinner slice. I have not had Chicago pizza, so I guess I can't really have a say on that. But in general, I have had like Sicilian pizza and a thicker pizza, and I prefer thinner pizza, in my opinion. Yo, what's going on, brother? Welcome to the stream. Can you let him get close? Of course not. You can't let him get close. Can't let you get close. With how greasy pizza are these days, my favorite component is tissue. Yeah, I mean, it's super, super greasy, a lot of these slices. I mean, listen, if it's a super greasy slice, though, it's not a good slice. But yes, you do have to use the napkin method just to loosen it up. Good steak, man, ruins a good steak. Yeah, exactly, man. I agree. Steak sauce is not necessary for a steak if it's actually good. If you're having like, I don't know, not to crap on Applebee's, but if you're having like an Applebee's steak or just like some random steak, all right, fine. Put a little steak sauce on it. But if you're going to like a very high level steakhouse, eat the steak. Be a man, eat the steak. You don't need any sort of steak sauce or anything like that. Have the sides and go forward with your life from there. I just never understood it. I've seen people put ketchup on steak. I don't know, like we're losing our minds here if you're doing something like that, in my opinion. But you keep it simple. You keep it simple with steak, and you go forward with your life. But yeah, what else we got to chat? Thoughts on Strickland versus Hamzat? I think Hamzat wins. I think most likely he probably just mauls Strickland. If I had to be honest, I definitely am going to be rooting for Strickland. I do think there is a very real path to victory for Strickland. Just use the jab, go forward, teep kick, survive early, and maybe pace him late. I just don't think it's going to happen. If I had to say, Strickland's takedown defense is not that great. He does a good job of getting back to his feet after getting taken down. So that's something to think about for Hamzat. But most likely, I think what will happen is early, Hamzat finds a takedown, probably threatens submissions, and maybe finds a finish early, if I had to say. But listen, there's a path to victory for Strickland, and I guess we shall see. But if Hamzat does win, don't be surprised when he moves up another weight class to the light heavyweight division. It is kind of unfortunate because basically every champion is doing it at this point. It's a little bit frustrating, to be completely honest, that every time someone wins the belt and gets one title defense, they decide to move up. I personally would like to see these guys actually clear out their divisions before they even think about moving up. But, it's happened a lot as of late. And I don't know. It's just very unfortunate. Kendall or Kylie? I'm not going to answer. I got a girl, but I'm not going to answer. Leave it up to you, boys. What else we got in chat, fellas? Favorite fast food places? I don't know. Chick-fil-A, I guess. I don't really go to too many fast food places. But I guess Chick-fil-A, at least in my area, I don't have too many. It's just McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, Chick-fil-A. What else? Arby's, and I don't know. What else is there around here? I guess that's it. But out of those, I would say Chick. What about you boys? What do you guys like? Gilbert Burns at face. Yeah, I mean, I think Gilbert Burns is pretty much washed. That's the only thing. That's the only thing. I mean, listen, he theoretically should beat Mike Malott. Mike Malott is not very good, but at the same time, I just think Burns is pretty washed. So I just can't really have much faith in him actually winning this fight, but we'll see. I'll be rooting for Gilbert Burns for sure. I know the UFC is trying to promote a Canadian star in Mike Malott. I just don't think he's very good personally. But we'll see, obviously, how it plays out. The card itself is very boring and just not good in general, though. So I may not watch the card. But yeah, favorite fast food place, whichever has max offers. Offer running on DoorDash. That's fair. That's fair. Get the best deal and whatnot. I don't hate it. Sonic is a dang and go step. Fucking hell, bro. What the hell's going on here? Sonic is not bad as well. I haven't had Sonic in forever, but when I did have it, it was not bad. They got good desserts and whatnot. Fish also, that is true. I don't know if you guys have been following this guy on Twitter, Jacob, with that line test, the green line test. It's been insane how good it's been tracking over the last like 5 or 6 cards. It's insane. He's been right every single time. So I don't know. We'll see who he has for the green line test this weekend. I don't think we had our face off yet, but whenever we do, I'll be waiting to see the green line test and we'll bet accordingly. But I don't know. It's kind of insane how accurate he's been. I thought Mike was your favorite welterweight, Mike Malott. Yeah, Mike Malott's my number one guy. He's really, really good. His output is insane. His power is incredible. So yeah, he's my favorite. You're right. Juicy 1, Fly 0. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I got a lot of lights in here, so it's attracting them. But I don't know where the fuck these guys are coming from. Chipotle or I've never even heard of that place. Well, Chipotle, obviously I've heard of, but I haven't heard of Dos Toros. But I'll say Chipotle by default. Chipotle's solid, but it's not as good as it used to be, I will say. I don't know. Some quality of the meat or just the food in general is not nearly as good as it used to be, unfortunately. And maybe that's a common trend in food in general ever since COVID. But for Chipotle, I definitely have noticed a bit of a decline. But it's still good. It's fine. If David comes up to your buddy asking who can carry the bus and lies, I'll carry the boats. And my boy will carry the logs. It was hilarious that he was in Tony Ferguson's corner. I mean, I don't know. I guess Tony at that point kind of knew how to fight. He just needed motivation. But in general, I thought he should have retired a long time before that. But he's still fighting. Technically, he's still boxing in Misfits. I don't know when his next fight is supposed to be, if he does even have a next fight. But it is good for him to see that he's having success doing something else and winning fights in 2026. So that's cool. He's making money along the way as well. But I hope I'm wrong about this. I'll be putting out a video talking more in depth about this tomorrow. But I do see a lot of similarities between Yuri Prochazka and Tony Ferguson. I think they both kind of use their chin as their main source of defense. And obviously, after years of damage for Tony Ferguson, his chin took a bit of a hit because of that. But most importantly, his athleticism took a significant hit, in part because of all the damage he took over the years. And obviously, he was just never the same going forward from there. And that's why he really went on his insane loss streak. Unfortunately, I do think there's a very real possibility we see something similar with Yuri Prochazka. I really hope I'm wrong. I'm a Yuri Prochazka fan, but he's taken a ton of damage over the years. Obviously, he was colded in his most recent performance, and it's just not something you love to see. If Yuri doesn't have great athleticism, and if Yuri doesn't have an absolutely elite chin, he's not going to be that effective. He's a great fighter, and obviously, he always puts himself through wars, and he's one of the most fun fighters in the UFC, but that comes with its risks. And that risk is if your chin goes, you're not really going to have anything to fall back on. Yuri Prochazka does not have any fundamentals to his game, unfortunately. So he can't really fall back to just a jab or staying safe and fighting with calf kicks. He just doesn't have that ability, really. He has to go forward. He has to throw himself into the fire to find his finishes. You have to try Dos Toros. All right, I'll try it. Where is it? Is it I'm assuming it's more like down south, I would assume. I don't know, in Texas or something. But yeah, they don't have them, at least by me. Tony don't keep his hands down all the way. Better grappling than Yuri. Yeah, I mean, that's true. That is fair. But at the same time, like, they're both similar in the sense that they do take a lot of damage, and they have taken a lot of damage, obviously. But yes, Yuri Prochazka's hands are always by his waist. We saw it in the finishing sequence. How you jab against a counter striker like that and just have your other hand completely down by your waist, I have no idea. But that's something that Yuri Prochazka has been doing throughout the entirety of his career. Tony Ferguson doesn't do the same thing, obviously, or he didn't do the same thing when he was in his prime. But with that being said, he got hit quite a bit. And I guess that's kind of the similarity between both of these guys. In and out shakes, Five Guys, cookies. Life goes good. That's true. I've never had In and Out actually. That's a place I really want to check out. Five Guys is really good. Joe's Pizza. I'm assuming you're talking about Joe's in the city, or is there a different chain? I don't know. But there's Joe's in New York City that's pretty good. Chipotle obviously is good. Taco Bell is okay. And yeah, I don't mind it. Subway's cookies are good though. Does terms of location in New York City? Okay, all right. Yeah, I haven't went to the city in quite a while, so yeah, I don't know, but that's something to think about next time I go. Maybe I'll check it out. Get a taco or burrito or whatever they got. Locker room. All right, whatever. Francis and Ghana. Yeah, that is something that's a good point actually. A lot of people aren't really talking about the Netflix card anymore. There's a lot of hype around it for about a week or about a few days, but at this point, nobody really cares about the Netflix card anymore. I'm sure when the card actually comes, about whenever it's fight week and during the Saturday when that card does happen, I believe it's in May, the middle of May. I'm sure people are going to watch it, and I'm sure there's going to be some sort of hype for the card. But in general, I don't think it's going to be like this extravagant card or something crazy or anything like that. The card is fine, but it's mostly made up of a bunch of older MMA legends. You have Ronda Rousey, who's kind of a washed women's MMA fighter for your main event. You have Francis Ngannou, who's a million years old, and he's fighting Felipe Lins, who's not really any good. You have Nate Diaz and Mike Perry. Obviously, well-known names, both of them, but they're not really high-level fighters, especially at this stage in their careers. The only fight that I think is actually high-level on that card is Morales versus whatever the fuck that guy's name is, Makayev. I think that's the highest level fight in the card. But outside of that, the rest of the card is kind of just big names. It's kind of like, oh, we're going to throw big names at you. Hopefully you watch because of that. That's kind of what the card is. Now, as I said before in previous live streams and even on some videos, I do think that Netflix can take advantage of this opportunity. If they do really well here in terms of viewership, I think it'll essentially signal to Netflix that there is something to be made here with this MMA product, and maybe they'll kind of go all in at that point going forward from there. But there's no guarantee that they'll do that, and I guess only time will tell what does end up happening. Also, once again, I do want to make a quick mention. If you guys are enjoying the live stream and want to support the channel, be sure to hit that join button down below. You'll get best bets every single card. You'll get members only live streams every single Friday. You'll get members only shout outs each one of my videos, discounted merch, which you see in the back. You'll also get access to full in-depth breakdowns for particular fights on each and every card, alongside with additional perks as well. So if you want to support the channel, be sure to hit that like button down below, or that join button down below, and of course our plans start at just 99 cents. What is your favorite movement like in the gym? Personally, mine is a pull-out. Very nice, very nice. I don't disagree. Derek Lewis, what's going on, brother? Welcome to the stream. How do you feel accurately predicting Blades versus Hookit? Feels good. Definitely feels good to get a prediction right. In general, it always feels good to get a prediction right. But I always thought that the pressure was going to be big for him, and I thought the athleticism and speed was going to be big for him. When you look at Curtis Blades' fights in the past, even before the Hookit fight, he always, kind of struggled with guys that were very fast. Even in the fight that he won against Jailton Almeida, he struggled a lot in that fight, in part because Jailton Almeida was really fast with his takedown shots. I thought Hookit could do a very similar thing with the speed by maybe shooting in for some takedowns, but even on the feet, just landing first. And obviously, that's exactly what he did. He ended up putting on the fight of the year by far. Now, obviously, the year is still young. Maybe we'll get better fights than Hookit versus Blades. But at the very least, at this point, by far, that's the fight of the year. So it feels good. But most importantly, I'm just happy for the heavyweight division. Finally, we have a functional heavyweight added to the weight class. And finally, it feels like there's some excitement to the heavyweight division. Not only did Hookit look pretty good, but also on top of that, on that same night, we got the news that Gable Steveson is also going to be added to the heavyweight division, and he's going to be making his debut for International Fight Week. Now, there's no guarantee that he's going to be really good. Obviously, I know a lot of people are excited about him. We haven't even seen him fight in the UFC or even on the Contender Series, so I'm personally pumping the brakes a little bit, but nonetheless, it does add excitement to the weight class. And he's athletic. He seems to be a functional heavyweight. And honestly, that's enough to beat a lot of guys. Maybe not the elite of the weight class, but in terms of the bottom half of the rankings and unranked guys, it is enough. So we'll see how he performs in his UFC debut. Thoughts on Nate's comments or recent fighters, podcasters. I didn't see that he said that, but I guess it's true. I mean, I don't blame them, to be honest, though. A lot of these fighters throughout their MMA or UFC careers probably didn't get paid enough. And because of that, they're probably going to be retiring at around 40, maybe even earlier than that. So they have the rest of their lives to live, and they still have to make money. So I don't really mind the fact that a lot of these guys are turning into podcasters. I know Bisping, obviously, I don't know if I'd necessarily call him a podcaster, but they're turning into YouTubers. Bisping, Chael Sonnen, Israel Adesanya even is doing it as well. There's a lot of different fighters that go to that, but I don't mind it. Listen, let them make their money in whatever way they want to. But it is what it is. As if you're not able to, sign with the UFC as a commentator, like what else are you really going to do? You don't really have many skills at that point. I mean, maybe some guys do, but in general, you don't really have that many skills, and it's going to be hard to find different jobs for the rest of your life. So why not? It makes a lot of sense. But doesn't Nate Diaz also have a Instagram? Doesn't he also have a YouTube channel? I didn't watch it, but I saw he posted a video like the other day. So, if he can do it, anybody can do it, I guess. So in your opinion, what would you do with light heavyweight next? Who fights Olberg? What's the title eliminator? The vision is weird place. Yeah, I think it's probably the best it could have been for Paulo Costa. So this is what I would personally do for the light heavyweight division. It's not perfect, I get it, but this is what I would do. Carlos Ulberg's going to be out for a while. I mean, there's no real getting around that. He's probably going to be out for at least 8 months, I would have to say, just recover from his injury and then start to work back, recovery. It's going to take a long time. So let's assume that they're going to put together an interim title fight for the light heavyweight division. What are your options? Either you could do Magomed Ankalaev versus Yuri Prochazka, which I don't personally think makes a lot of sense. You can do Magomed Ankalaev versus Paulo Costa, which I don't love. You can do, I don't know. Outside of that, I don't know, actually. So those are two options. Or the option that I personally like the best is you can do Paulo Costa versus Khamzat Chimaev, assuming Khamzat Chimaev beats Sean Strickland, which I think he will. So what I would personally like to see is Khamzat versus Paulo Costa interim title fight. I get it. Paulo Costa only has one win at the light heavyweight division. But with that being said, Magomed Ankalaev, Yuri Prochazka, Khalil Roundtree, Jamal Hill, as well as Mirzakhanov are all coming off knockout losses in their most recent fights. So because of that, I think it opens the door to Paulo. He's on a 2-fight win streak. He had a huge performance in his last one versus Mirzakhanov. Why not put together the big money fight between Paulo and Khamzat? It'll sell the best. It's the biggest fight. Also, there is a claim to be made that Paulo honestly even deserves the opportunity more than everybody else of the weight class, because everybody else of the weight class, the top half, is coming off a knockout loss. So why not? That's what I would personally do. But we'll see. All are trying to compete with Juicy, but they're gonna. I appreciate that, brother. Appreciate it. Nobody can mess with the Juice. Conor Benn made $15 million and he wasn't even the main event. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. The money in boxing is insane, especially the top half. Now, in terms of these like lower level guys that, are the first fight of the night or on the prelims, these guys probably make even less money than UFC fighters do. Like they make no money. But in terms of like the main events or like the bigger name guys, they make quite a bit of money in boxing. It's kind of insane. Whole bottle of drinking stuff. Fucking hell. I got another one, brother. Don't worry. It's going to be Costa versus Unk for the interim title. I mean, I don't hate that, honestly. Like, you could put that fight together. I know Ankalaev is technically the number one contender, but I just don't feel like that fight sells that well. I know the UFC doesn't like Ankalaev, so why would they give him another opportunity to get the belts for one? But also for two, Ankalaev versus Paulo Costa probably does 7 buys, if we're being honest, or not buys anymore. I know they don't do pay-per-views, but it probably does like 7 viewers. Not too many people are going to really care about that. So I prefer them to go in a different direction. If they did that, I guess it's okay. But I would prefer them to go in a different direction. If Bogan someone finishes Jan, would he be eligible? I mean, it puts him in a good spot because everybody else got knocked out, as I said. But I don't think so. Jan is currently number 4 at the weight class. I mean, maybe it could. Maybe if he does win, you can put together a fight between Bogdan and Paulo Costa for the interim title. Maybe you can do something like that. Obviously, both of them at that point would be coming off wins when essentially everybody else is coming off a loss. So it's a thought, but I think it'll really depend on, for one, if he wins, but for two, how good he actually looks. If he wins a very close decision or just a very close performance in general, I don't think he would be eligible. He would have to win in emphatic fashion. You are funny to think that Paulo would only have 1 win till he fights Hamzat. Hamzat is going to be gone for another time. You're not you're not totally wrong, to be honest. I mean, there's nothing to really tell us that Hamzat is going to be active at all after he does fight next against Sean Strickland. If he loses, I think he's going to be out for like the rest of his life, to be honest. I don't know if he ever fights again. But if he wins, he's probably going to be out for quite a while. I know he does want to move up to light heavyweight, but you are right. I mean, he's not going to come back anytime soon. So maybe the UFC just holds him out, and Carlos Ulberg's going to be out for a long time anyway. So maybe they just have Hamzat Chimaev face Carlos Ulberg whenever Ulberg is able to return, and it's probably going to be around a year anyway. Hamzat doesn't fight anyway, so I guess the timelines kind of do add up for that fight to happen. I hope that does not happen because you don't want to see Hamzat essentially stalling out 2 weight classes, but it could. It definitely could. How to collect in too many bottles. You got a load of very nice. What is next at 135? I haven't heard of a matchup in some time. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would assume the next title fight at least is going to be Jan versus Merab. I think that makes all the sense in the world. Merab was champ for a while, defended his belt a lot. He did a lot for the UFC. Clearly deserves the next shot against Jan. I know the UFC probably really wants to put together a fight between Sean O'Malley and Jan. They're probably dreaming of it, especially if Sean wins at the White House card, which I think he will. But Jan deserves it. I hope it's that fight. In terms of when is that going to happen, not sure. Maybe it could be the co-main event of UFC 330 in Philadelphia in August. Could be that on that card, maybe. Could be on a later card, a month after, 2 months after. But I do think it's going to be around summertime, if I had to say. Maybe August, maybe September, something like that. But it should be sooner rather than later. It's been a while. I know Jan did get injured, and I know he did get surgery, but I think he's healthy at this point. I know he posted something on his Instagram that he was healthy and he was, waiting to return. But I don't know. We'll see. It is unfortunate, though, that we're kind of waiting out a while. Merab is also MMA. Yeah, I mean, I think Merab is kind of just waiting for that title shot, more or less. I think that's really what's going on with him. But yeah, we haven't seen or heard from him in a while. I think he does want to fight on RAF, or maybe he is supposed to fight on RAF relatively soon. But in terms of him fighting in the UFC, I think he's just waiting for Jan. I just realized I had 2 different streams. One of them right now. Also, it's under right now. The questions you're answering. Yeah, I got 2 streams. I got vertical and horizontal streams on Juicy MMA. Also, I am also streaming on the Juicecast channel, my second channel. So I got technically 3 streams. Actually, technically 4 streams. I'm also streaming on Twitch. So technically 4 streams all at the same time, just to garner the most amount of fans possible. So it's essentially why I do it. I think they should give Umar the title shot before Merab, let him rest a bit. Honestly, I disagree. I think Merab should get it. I don't hate the idea of Merab resting, but at the same time, he's already had some time to rest. It's April at this point, and we still haven't heard any sort of news. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if Merab, does get the next shot. It'll probably be not before the summer anyway, at the very earliest. So by that point, Merab would have plenty of time to rest. So I think he should get it. Marab's nose is broken. That is true. I did see that actually on Instagram. But his nose is always broken. I don't think he really even cares. So yeah, I don't know. But yes, his nose is broken. I'm calling Strickland winning. Yeah, I mean, listen, I could see it. It's not impossible. There's a very real path to victory for Sean Strickland. Just survive early, force Hamzat to work, and then late, that's really where he can start to pull away. Utilize his jab, utilize his right straight, teep kick to the body, pace Hamzat Chimaev, gas him out, and find the finish in those later rounds. I think it's possible that Strickland can win in that way. It's just going to be absolute hell for Strickland in that first round, or really those first 2 rounds. I've said this a lot. I'll say it again. I think Hamzat Chimaev is by far the best, the absolute best first-round fighter of all time. So it's going to be absolute hell for anybody, honestly, to have any sort of success in that sort of a matchup. But Strickland could do it. He refuses to get surgery. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he just doesn't care. He's just one of those guys that has a bunch of injuries, doesn't really care, just moves forward anyway, eats whatever the fuck he wants, has amazing cardio, and just looks really good. The only surgery he gets is hairline surgery or hair transplant. But outside of that, it seems like he just lives life and just heals naturally. I don't know. He's one of a kind. But Merab's definitely a very fun fighter and person in general, honestly. Rob is also looking for a wife, so yeah, poor. That's true. You are right. Good Marab is broken. Let him kiss. Very nice. I'm gonna be more returns. I think Strickland is a nightmare matchup for Chimaev. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, listen, as I said before, I see the path to victory. It's just going to be really difficult for him to get there. If he can get to round 3, I think he will win. Actually, I feel comfortable in saying that. But the question is, could he get there? But one thing that I will say about Strickland is he is very difficult to finish. I mean, the last guy to finish him was Alex Pereira, who set him up really nicely with that left hook eventually. But outside of him, nobody has really been able to finish Sean Strickland. He's really, really difficult to finish, both on the feet as well as even on the ground. So, I mean, if anyone was going to finish him, it probably would be Hamzat, but we'll see. We'll see how it plays out, of course. What else we got here, fellas? His hate for Chimaev is going to fuel him through that. That's true. That's true. I mean, they both hate each other. One thing that I also want to say, which actually could be a positive for Strickland, is in Hamzat's last fight, he fought a 5-round sort of a pace where he just found takedowns, laid on top, and made it a really boring fight. But because of Hamzat's gas tank issues, that probably was honestly smart for him to fight like that. Very boring to watch, incredibly boring, but it was smart, I guess, based upon his cardio issues. But one thing that I will say about going into this fight, I do think there is a very real possibility that he might hate Strickland so much that he may go all out for the finish early. And if he can't find that finish early, all of a sudden there's a real opportunity for Strickland to pull away late. That's one thing I will say. And Hamzat doesn't necessarily seem like the most even keel guy in the world. So if he really has a dislike for Strickland, which he does, he may go all out for the finish. And if he gets it, all right, good for him. But if he can't, he's in deep shit at that point. Burns his harder than Strickland, even though he's not able to him. So I don't see Strickland winning, but I guess in 20 minutes of talking. Yeah, I mean, listen, Strickland does not hit hard at all. I don't think Strickland's going to be able to knock out Hamzat Chimaev with one shot or something like that. I think really the way that Strickland could win by finish is by, essentially fighting a completely gassed out Hamzat Chimaev. If we're going into the 3rd, 4th, and 5th rounds and Hamzat is just backing up and completely gasping for air, that's really where I think Strickland can get a finish. It's not going to be one shot where he just hits incredibly hard and Hamzat can't take the shots. It's not going to be something like that. It's going to be a sustained pressure, sustained cardio, and sustained shots over the course of a full 5-round fight. But even then, I wouldn't be surprised if Strickland doesn't finish him, even if Hamzat's absolutely gassed. But one way or the other, if the fight goes 5 rounds, I think Strickland will be your winner. Could it happen that it's another Dricus fight? Maybe. It is something to think about, but I think Strickland is going to put up significantly more resistance as compared to DDP. So because of that, I think if the fight goes the distance, it'll be a Strickland victory. People forget, man. It's true. That's true. That is true. People forget. I think Hamzat is actually, at this point, I would say he's slightly underrated in terms of his striking. Now, offensively, his striking is decent. I mean, he hits pretty hard. He has pretty fast hand speed. His jab's nice. He can switch stances, fight pretty nicely out of either stance. So he's not bad offensively when he's striking. The issue with Hamza Chimaev is defensively. He's incredibly hittable. We've seen that in really all of his fights where he's been held on the feet for an extended period of time. Kamaru Usman, DDP even at the very end, as well as Gilbert Burns. When the fight stays on the feet, he's incredibly hittable. And I think that's a big issue for him, especially going into a fight against Sean Strickland. Not saying that Strickland hits that hard. He doesn't. But if you're super hittable, as we saw in the Fluffy fight, and Fluffy is also really hittable, Strickland can constantly put that jab in your face, kind of slowing down or stopping altogether your forward momentum. So I do think it's going to be a bit of an issue for Hamzat. He doesn't move his head. He doesn't slip any sort of jabs. And it's going to be a bit of an issue if we get to that third round and onward. But in terms of offensive striking, yeah, he's not bad. Man, my team is asking me to work. The pressure is building. Motivation is lost. How should I cope and get better? Yeah, I mean, I feel it. I definitely have been there as well, where I just have not been super motivated about work, just working for somebody else in general. It sucks. I don't know. I mean, I don't know exactly. Obviously, I don't know you exactly, but I don't know. I don't have great advice, honestly, for it. I've been in that situation. I kind of just pushed through it. I haven't really done anything in specific. Kind of just had good days and bad days, and it just is what it is. But maybe it'll get better. Maybe it doesn't. And if not, maybe look for different employment. Obviously, don't quit your job immediately, but maybe look for different employment. If you can find something better, go with that. But it is a very real thing that a lot of people go through. So, yeah, that does suck. Like I'm going to be picking Strickland, but not out of the realm of possibility that he could chin power. Yeah, it's not out of the realm of possibility. I agree, but Strickland is really difficult to hit. I think if Hamzat is going to find a finish, it's either going to be by a submission or a TKO on the ground. Could he knock him out on the feet? Yeah, if he lands a perfect shot, sure he can. It's just Strickland is so hard to hit, man. It's just not super likely. The only guy that was really able to set him up was Alex Pereira. And obviously, Alex Pereira has much better timing, much better technical ability, as well as much better power. Maybe I just said that, but you get my point. He's just a better striker overall as compared to Hamzat, and he set up that shot nicely. Hamzat doesn't really have that same ability. Could he land just a giant right hand or something like that? Maybe, but I just don't think it's super likely. Could he set it off of the takedowns? Maybe, but I don't think it's super likely. My advice, just go hard on stuff, man. Do the best job you can. Yeah, that's good advice, Derek. Employment Juicy, I will serve as your water during stream. Will do. If I ever need some sort of employment in the future, you'll be the first guy I ask, brother. It's just at this point, the channel is not generating any money or like barely any money at this point, so I'm still working through it. So I'm not really in the position to hire anybody at this point. But if I ever need something and the channel does a little bit better, I'll definitely hire you in the future. But yeah, boys. We'll see. Oh, here we go. Rob Dawes really said that he could beat anyone except for and the night that they fought. And blah, blah, blah. All right. I don't know when that fight's going to happen though. But yeah, I mean, listen, I do think Merab probably could beat everybody else in the weight class, if I had to say. Could he beat Petr Yan? Yeah, I do think so. I think he could, but obviously he did in the past. But I think it'll be a very difficult thing for him to actually do. I think he's more or less going to need to fight perfect. Jan put on, honestly, a masterclass of a performance in their last fight. So adjustments need to be made. The calf kick, I do think, is something that Merab can go to. I think pressure, obviously, is something he can go to. And he was having some level of success very early in that fight with his striking. But I don't know. It's going to be tough, to say the least. And also, honestly, like the biggest issue I would say for Merab was the fact that he wasn't able to take down Petr Yan that easily at all. And that's definitely a big issue for him. Also, I don't know if you guys actually play, but I know UFC 6 is coming out relatively soon. I'm also trying to find information, but I told once again that everything might be accurate. Before the end of May. Okay. Release date is the summer. Yeah, I've been hearing this as well. Yeah, so UFC 6 is going to be coming out relatively soon. I don't know if any of you guys play it. I do. Maybe I'll play it on stream one time or the other. I don't know. But it's cool. It's coming out soon. I believe in the summer it's coming out, and we'll probably hear some more information about it within the next couple weeks. So that's something to think about. Hopefully it's better than UFC 5. UFC 5 kind of sucks, if we're being honest. But we'll see. Purpose, dirty move. Damn. I'm missing the play-in game. I'm sure a lot of you guys are watching the play-in. I might hop off stream, honestly, relatively soon, just to watch that. I know it's been a bit of a slower stream at this point, but I will be streaming on Fridays, or on Friday, and every single Friday, honestly, for all you channel members. And whatnot. But yeah, fellas, if you guys have any additional questions, be sure to let me know in chat. Fuck it hell. But all right, boys. I think I'm gonna hop off stream at this point. I appreciate you guys for joining the stream. Once again, I'll be streaming on Friday for you channel members. Also, a video will be coming out tomorrow at 8 p.m. or at 2 p.m. Eastern time. Probably the Yuri video. On my second channel, episode 5 of the Juicecast will be out on Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. I'm also going to be posting probably a little bit more on the Juicecast as compared to what I've been doing in the past. So if you guys are interested, I do have a second channel called the Juicecast. Link is in the description alongside with on the channel in general. So if you're interested, check it out. Hit that subscribe button. I'll be posting more frequently on that channel. But anyways, boys, until the next time, peace out, fellas.